The world watched in astonishment as Damascus, the ancient heart of Syria, fell to rebel forces on December 8, 2024. After years of brutal civil war, Bashar al-Assad's iron grip on power had finally shattered. Yet, in a twist that surprised even seasoned observers, Assad himself vanished. The dictator who had once seemed invincible had disappeared like a phantom, leaving behind a nation in turmoil and a mystery that captivated the globe. Where did he go? The question echoed through the halls of power from Washington to Moscow, and dominated conversations from bustling Middle Eastern cafes to the hushed newsrooms of international media outlets. Theories abounded, each more dramatic than the last. Some whispered of a daring escape, others of a final desperate gamble. But amidst the speculation, one thing was certain: Bashar al-Assad, the man who had ruled Syria with an iron fist for over 2 decades, was gone. And with his disappearance, the future of Syria, a nation already scarred by years of conflict, became more uncertain than ever before. The fall of Damascus marked the culmination of a devastating civil war. Rebel forces, emboldened by a string of victories in key cities like Aleppo, had launched a final, desperate offensive. They swept into the capital, encountering surprisingly little resistance. It was as if Assad's forces, demoralized and depleted, had simply lost the will to fight. The streets of Damascus, once teeming with life and the bustle of commerce, were transformed into a chaotic battleground. Buildings were reduced to rubble, their facades scarred by bullet holes and blackened by fire. The air was thick with smoke and the stench of cordite. As the rebels tightened their grip on the city, rumors of Assad's imminent departure began to circulate. It was said that he had fled the presidential palace in a convoy of heavily armed vehicles, his destination unknown. Some whispered of a secret tunnel leading out of the city, others of a waiting helicopter. Whatever the means, one thing was clear: Bashar al-Assad, faced with the imminent collapse of his regime, had chosen to abandon his capital and disappear into the night. As the sun rose on a Damascus now controlled by rebel forces, a sense of disbelief mingled with cautious optimism. The reign of Bashar al-Assad, it seemed, was finally over, but the whereabouts of the deposed dictator remained a mystery. Then a tantalizing clue emerged. Aviation experts monitoring radar data noticed an unusual flight path. A plane identified as a Syrian Air Force jet had taken off from Damascus International Airport just hours before the city fell. It had flown a circuitous route, first heading north towards Turkey, before abruptly changing course and disappearing from radar over the Syrian desert. Speculation ran rampant. Was Assad on board that plane? If so, where was it headed? Had it landed safely, or had something gone terribly wrong? The mystery of the phantom flight deepened the sense of uncertainty that gripped Syria. The world held its breath, waiting for an answer that seemed frustratingly out of reach. As days turned into nights and the whereabouts of Bashar al-Assad remained a mystery, rumors began to surface of a possible safe haven: Russia. Moscow, a longtime ally of the Assad regime, had provided diplomatic cover and military support throughout the Syrian civil war. It was conceivable, some argued, that Russia had orchestrated a clandestine extraction, spiriting Assad out of Damascus as the city fell. Adding fuel to the fire were unconfirmed reports of increased activity at the Russian embassy in Damascus in the days leading up to the city's fall. Sources within the Syrian opposition claimed that Russian diplomats had been working feverishly to secure safe passage for Assad and his inner circle. While Russian officials remained tight-lipped, refusing to confirm or deny any involvement in Assad's disappearance, the possibility of a Russian exile refused to die. For many it seemed the most plausible explanation: a desperate dictator facing certain capture or worse, seeking refuge in the arms of his most powerful protector. While the theory of a Russian exile gained traction, a darker possibility also emerged. What if the plane that disappeared from radar over the Syrian desert had never reached its intended destination? What if, instead of finding safe haven, it had met a fiery end? The Syrian desert was a vast and unforgiving landscape, littered with the wreckage of war. It wouldn't be difficult for a plane, especially one flying low to avoid radar detection, to crash without a trace. The crash site, if it existed, could remain hidden for days, weeks, or even months. Adding to the intrigue were reports, unconfirmed but persistent, of increased rebel activity in the area where the plane had vanished. Had rebel forces, aware of Assad's possible escape route, been waiting to ambush his plane? The idea of Assad dying in a fiery crash, his body lost amidst the dunes, seemed almost too cinematic to be true. Yet, as days turned into weeks, and the mystery of the missing plane remained unsolved, the possibility, however remote, could not be entirely discounted. As the world grappled with the mystery of Bashar al-Assad's disappearance, a deafening silence emanated from Damascus. The new rebel government, struggling to establish control over a shattered nation, seemed as much in the dark about Assad's whereabouts as everyone else. Repeated calls for Assad to resurface, to confirm his safety or face the consequences of his actions, were met with stony silence. There were no pronouncements from his inner circle, no defiant messages broadcast from a secret location. This silence, more than any rumor or speculation, spoke volumes. It suggested that even those closest to Assad, the men who had once been privy to his every move, were now out of the loop. It painted a picture of a regime in utter disarray, its leadership scattered, its figurehead vanished without a trace. The silence from Damascus only deepened the mystery surrounding Assad's fate. It was a silence pregnant with possibility, fueling speculation and stoking the fires of intrigue. With Bashar al-Assad's fate hanging in the balance, Syria found itself at a crossroads. The dictator's disappearance, while welcomed by many as a sign of hope, had created a dangerous power vacuum. The country, already ravaged by years of conflict, was now vulnerable to further instability and violence. The rebel coalition, a fragile alliance of disparate groups united only by their opposition to Assad, was ill-prepared to assume control of the country. Internal divisions, suppressed during the fight for survival, threatened to erupt into open warfare. The international community, long divided over how to address the Syrian crisis, now faced a new set of challenges. The possibility of a post-Assad Syria, while tantalizing, was fraught with risk. The wrong move, a misstep in diplomacy or a miscalculation of the balance of power, could plunge the country into even greater chaos. The stakes were incredibly high. The future of Syria, a nation teetering on the brink, hung in the balance. As the days after Assad's disappearance turned into weeks, the world watched and waited. The mystery of the vanished dictator had captivated the global imagination, a real-life thriller playing out on the world stage. In newsrooms and government offices, in coffee shops and living rooms, people debated Assad's fate. Was he alive or dead? In hiding or living a life of luxury and exile? Had he met a fitting end for a tyrant, or would he one day resurface to haunt the world stage once more? The answers, for now, remained elusive. The only certainty was that the disappearance of Bashar al-Assad had ushered in a new era of uncertainty for Syria and the wider Middle East. The world, holding its breath, could only watch and wait to see what the future held. As 2024 drew to a close, the mystery of what happened to Bashar al-Assad on that fateful December day remained unsolved. The vanished dictator had become a ghost, his presence haunting the ruins of his regime. The world, accustomed to the rapid pace of news and the instant gratification of social media, was left to grapple with a mystery that defied easy answers. The theories continued to circulate, each new piece of information, no matter how tenuous, scrutinized for clues. But the truth, for now, remained just out of reach, hidden beneath a veil of speculation and intrigue. The mystery of Bashar al-Assad's disappearance served as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of history. It was a story that defied easy categorization, a drama that blended elements of tragedy, intrigue, and even dark humor. And as the world moved on, grappling with new crises and challenges, the question lingered. What had become of the dictator who had vanished into thin air? It was a question that would continue to fascinate and frustrate, a mystery for the ages.